Fear is the path to the dark side.
Because America has made it clear it wants elected officials to live by these principles. That government is best which governs least. The people are entitled to a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. The Constitution was written to keep the government off the people's backs.
But first, a few items from our Freedom File. In Upper Marlboro, Maryland, the Prince George County Council faces a $77 million budget deficit this year. So, the council leaders prudently decided to take a $15,000 retreat to a golf resort on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay in order to decide what to do about the deficit. This is beyond tone deaf. Taxed to death, American workers are struggling to make ends meet, and this county's government thinks it has the right to pamper itself on the taxpayers' dime. It's unconscionable. Balance your budget, pay your bills, and pay for your own vacations. Ghulat Mohammed, an American citizen of Somali descent, was detained and tortured for 2 weeks in Kuwait. It's unclear who was responsible for kidnapping him and bringing him there. But this ordeal landed Mr. Mohammed on an American no-fly list. So even though he hasn't been charged with any crime, this American citizen cannot fly back to the United States. The federal government's job is supposed to be defending this man's rights. Instead, it has allowed an innocent, uncharged American to rot in a Kuwaiti jail cell indefinitely. Secretary of State Clinton, where are you when we need you? And yet another small victory for freedom. An Alaska Superior Court judge has ruled that the policy of the city of Anchorage of raiding homeless encampments and taking their property is unconstitutional. The invalidated law required the city to give 5 days' notice before seizing what property the homeless had. The ACLU of Alaska successfully argued that 5 days was not enough notice for a state seizure of property. The point is that no government has the constitutional authority to separate anyone from their property, regardless of financial status, without either suing him for it or paying him for it. A few items from our Freedom File. Congress gave $3 million of your tax dollars to researchers at the University of California in Irvine so they could literally play the video game of World of Warcraft. It very well might be reasonable for researchers to study video games, but they should do it on their own dime. This research is not for the general welfare, as the Constitution requires, making it an unconstitutional use of federal money. And besides, it's just plain offensive for hard-working taxpayers to subsidize college professors to play video games. Leo Longoria, the police chief of Mission, Texas, gave away seized property as door prizes at a police department Christmas party last month. The items included TVs and video game consoles worth thousands of dollars. Texas state law requires that such items be donated to legitimate charities or sold. But like some in law enforcement, Chief Longoria believes he's above the law. He doesn't think he did anything illegal. Illegal or not, and it is, giving away seized property as prizes to the people who have seized it is a serious violation of the public trust. The police are supposed to protect the rights of people, not to plunder their possessions. Several states, in a misguided and heavy-handed attempt to curb methamphetamine production, have introduced electronic tracking of cold medicine purchases. Cold medicine is a common ingredient in methamphetamine, and the feds in some states have decided that you can't ingest methamphetamine. But instead of limiting meth production, this harebrained unconstitutional tracking of people's purchases of lawful, over-the-counter medicine has simply drawn more individuals into the black market. Have you tried to buy cold medicine at a supermarket this winter? Be prepared to give your name, address, and social security number to a stranger. When will the government learn that it does not have the right to tell us what to put into our bodies, and that no matter what schemes it comes up with to stop us from doing so, people will do what they want? First, a few items from our Freedom File. The financial crisis has left many states deep in the red. Here in New York, the situation is so bad that the new governor, Democrat Andrew Cuomo, claims cutting taxes will boost New York's economy. But this fiscal epiphany has not hit lawmakers in Illinois, who recently decided to raise state income tax rates by 66%. Higher taxes means Fewer jobs, less tax revenue collected, more people out of work. The city of brotherly love is gearing up for, are you ready for this? An outdoor smoking ban. Now, across the country, we all know that smokers have been banned from stores and restaurants and businesses. America, the government's attempt to control our bad habits has gone too far. It's wrong to ban things that are wrong for us. We have the right to make individual choices. We can choose what to put in our bodies. Besides, how can the police possibly enforce an outdoor ban? In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Terry Duncan was fined $500 for swearing on a public bus. When Mr. Duncan said the F word and the S word, an undercover officer on the bus overheard him and ordered Duncan off the bus and slapped him with a citation. Mr. Duncan says this is un-American, and he's right. Speech is protected by the Constitution, even ugly speech. Don't the police have more important things to do? Who hasn't heard these words, and who was harmed by them? But swearing in public is not nearly as offensive as protesting the funerals of soldiers and murder victims. Arizona lawmakers wrote a law last night to stop the Westboro Baptist Church from doing just that. More on that later in the show. But first, a few items from our Freedom File. In Kinzers, Pennsylvania, federal agents showed up unannounced at Dan Alger's dairy farm for an inspection at 5 o'clock in the morning. The agents believed that Mr. Alger was participating in the interstate sale of raw milk, which is illegal under federal law. This raid is deeply troubling. Why is the federal government regulating what kind of milk we can drink in the first place? If individuals want to sell and consume unpasteurized milk, that's their own personal choice. But just as important, what about Mr. Alger's Fourth Amendment rights? These agents did not have a warrant from a judge. They just invaded the place. They had no constitutional authority to be there. In the latest instance of government waste, the Government Accountability Office estimates that the Department of Veterans Affairs wastes, ready for this, $175 million every year, maintaining thousands of unused properties across the country. One of the buildings is a defunct red octagonal monkey habitat at a zoo at the Dayton, Ohio Veterans Administration Medical Facility. What's worse is that due to ridiculous federal laws, the VA cannot sell these buildings to local government or private interests, leaving their upkeep costs squarely on the backs of American taxpayers. What is the Veterans Administration doing owning a monkey habitat? And in New York City, Ann Stanzik, a 49-year-old Polish immigrant with little understanding of English, was brutally beaten by New York City police officers during an arrest. The assault left this woman with large, dark purple bruises on her chest and a black eye. Her alleged crime? Failing to clean up after her dog. The woman denies any wrongdoing. Regardless, this should never have happened. Again and again across the country, police are forgetting that they are sworn to protect the rights of people. Yet with a badge on their wallets and a state-issued sidearm, the police somehow think they have the authority to beat a woman brutally for not cleaning up dog feces. Sadly, this type of behavior is all too common. Now, take a guess. When the arrest was over, you think the police cleaned up after the dogs after they beat her? A few items from Mexican File. Defense Secretary Robert Gates wants to cut defense spending, if only Congress would let him. Gates argues that a special vehicle designed for the Marine Corps is far too expensive given its tactical merit. But surprise, surprise, the Republican congressmen in the districts where these vehicles are to be built are opposed to dropping this $14 billion project. General Dynamics, the company contracted to build the vehicle, concurs, arguing that the canceling of this project will lead to job losses in Ohio and Michigan. Has Congress forgotten that the Department of Defense's purpose is to defend America? How is creating make-work jobs to produce a vehicle that the Defense Department doesn't even want part of this goal? This is your money, America, and Congress has no shame in wasting it. Olivia Clark was born in Seattle, Washington, only to die tragically within an hour of her birth. But King County, which includes the city of Seattle, has charged Olivia's parents with a $50, you ready for this, death fee. Death fee. Okay. The government taxes you $50 when you die. This family has had to bury their own newborn child. Its parents' absolute worst nightmare. And the county in which they live is defending this. What has our society become? when instead of compassion, government officials react with a heartless insensitivity to life's tragedy and continue to steal money from us. Democratic New Jersey Assemblywoman Cleopatra Tucker had a brilliant idea the other day. She wanted to require all New Jersey cyclists to register their bicycles with the state, just like motorists do with their cars. America, this is ridiculous. For what possible reason do bikes need to be registered with the government? Perhaps this is just a harebrained attempt to raise revenue, but it's another example of a lawmaker demanding more power over our lives. Do we really want police resources used to hunt down and target unregistered bikes? It's crazy. Fortunately, in a rare moment of common sense, Assemblywoman Parker's own Democratic colleagues from my home state agree with Freedom Watch, and with pressure from her own party, the Assemblywoman has withdrawn this proposal.
Turn them off!
Despite
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.